Cosmos Hub. Today we have Magmar with us and we will talk a lot about new Cosmos Hub vision, new Cosmos Hub focus and all of the recent news. So I hope it will be interesting for you, and don't forget that you can always support us by staking your tokens with the Quasar Validator. Hello Mag, it's a pleasure to see you here with us again. How are you doing?
Doing good. Yeah, it's been but I think we're coming out the other end of it better than we came in. So
Nice. So there are plenty news from the Cosmos Hub, new Cosmos Hub focus, and I hope we'll discuss all of them today. And the first question is like the general one. Can we say that Cosmos is on the way to become the true internet of the blockchains?
So I would say at a high level, I mean, just to recap the announcement, we announced very transparently a shift in strategy to away from launching an EVM and into instead doubling down on our recent traction that we've seen with the Cosmos stack to get it adopted by real world institutions and other blockchains. And so from my perspective, this gives us a much better shot at actually building the right technology for its major institutions and supports real world businesses coming into Cosmos. We previously had no real initiatives that did that, and we had no go-to-market there. And even without that, we were seeing massive adoption. Just recently, we've seen Ripple build its official sidechain on Cosmos technology. We've seen TAC, which is Telegram's application chain, build on Cosmos technology. And these are teams that we're very close with, right? They're very willing to associate with Cosmos, unlike a couple of folks in the past. And in my opinion, Cosmos was really built to be an internet of blockchains, right? It was not designed to be one blockchain. And so it reaffirms sort of our commitment to making the Cosmos Hub an interchain service provider for all of these different chains and to expand the number of them. So the answer is yes.
Let's talk a bit about the TAC, XRPL, and ONDO finance. These are all incredible things, and that's real big deals. But how they will benefit Atom and the Cosmos Hub?
Yeah. So one of the first things that we're focused on with some of these larger customers is building the relationships. And that's not direct monetization, but it is a necessary step to really figure out what they need and what we could build for them. So far, I can talk to some of these things. I mean, these chains are going to be IBC connected at a minimum, or that's what the plan is right now. And we anticipate them having large amounts of inflows and outflows into their ecosystem. And we've built, IBC Eureka, and we've built SkipGo, both of which use and IBC V2 to connect these chains to outside ecosystems while accruing value to Atom in the process, right? So IBC Eureka, which lets you sort of import assets from outside ecosystems, routes everything through the Cosmos Hub and burns Atom in the process. And similarly, it's an extra step, but SkipGo, which is a cross-chain routing and swapping product, which is very popular, just over $1 billion of volume a month, accrues fees that we are going to be using to accrue value to Atom. And this is something that we haven't done yet, but we are just right now implementing the structure to do. And there's some legal considerations to do this effectively. But I think the important part is this new change in direction lets us figure out more ways that we can monetize, right, and accrue value to Atom. And everything we do, right, because that's how you run a business. Like, we are interested in accruing revenue, just like any other business, and we're interested in having that actually provide value for our token holders, and this really gives us the chance to explore the different options for doing that with these chains that are adopting the stack.
There are very big news, and can we talk a bit about the future? Recently on the town hall, you announced that you'll try to connect with the MasterCard try to work with the Swift and all of that kind of stuff. Can we also expect other networks to join in such way, like as it done with the XRPL and TAC?
I mean, we're actively pursuing conversations now with all of these different parties. We are running a pilot program to help these most to begin adopting technology. And we feel really confident that we have the best stack for these needs, right? Cosmos gives you so much in terms of customizability and sovereignty. It is a superior stack for building your own blockchain. It has only gotten better and it's going to get even better. And we think that we can win this segment. Just to be fully honest about it, we think the competitors look years behind what we have in terms of the performance properties of the stack, in terms of the privacy and confidentiality properties, in terms of the modularity properties, and in terms of the interoperability, especially. Cosmos has features that are necessary for financial institutions, like fast finality. That's not something that any other stack really has. And it has, the easiest way to fully customize your own validator set, which is necessary for larger businesses. And so we thought this was this is an opportunity that's been so good that even without any effort, we've been attracting large institutions and large companies like the ones that you just mentioned. But with focus and with doubling down on that, I think we can do even better.
Okay. Many people also very curious about the Atom role on this field. Like, for example, how it will directly benefit Atom, not only like burning and buybacks. Can we expect something more, and how it will work with Atom especially?
So I think at a minimum, you can't start from Atom, right? You can't have Atom and then say, okay, we're going to put this asset into some kind of system, right? You need to start from the customer, right? What does the customer want, right? Because the customer, if they don't hold Atom, you telling them about Atom is not going to make a difference. What we're starting from is, what do these customers need, right? What are they going to pay for? What is going to lead us to be able to build a very profitable business, right? And we believe that there are huge opportunities here, right? These are customers that can pay. They can pay millions of dollars for the right technology. We know how to build that technology, right? After that, the question of added value accrual is the same question of, how does Amazon stock accrue value, right? Is the Amazon company, buying the stock and burning it? No, they're not, right? What they're doing is they're generating a real company, and by buying Amazon, you have ownership rights, right? And you have a piece of that success. From our perspective, we don't have a stock, right? We don't have equity. We do have Atom, and we do have the capability to build an extremely profitable business, and unlike Amazon, directly drive that value to Atom, which we're really excited to do, right? And which we'll have the option of doing if we do have, if we are able to increase our revenue to the point that, we can actually start to build a strategy of accumulating Atom.
Cosmos Hub in general. There are the plans to deploy own NFT Marketplace and own DEX. So the Stride used to be this opportunity, but now it's gone. Still it be on the plans, or we completely move from that and we don't think anymore about own DEX and marketplace?
We had a lot of partners that we were excited to work with for the EVM vision. We funded them. So in the case of Stride, we put in a major investment. We're huge investors in Stride now. We're still going to maintain that investment. We're still going to be investors in all of these different projects. We're not making any changes there. However, the strategy must change for that, right? The strategy of being the hub DEX is not going to be as much a possibility, because we're not going to have a permissionless smart contract layer on the hub. So what we're doing with them now is working with them closely as an investor and as a partner to find a place for them to be successful, no matter what direction they want to go. And I think this can be disappointing to some folks who are betting on that narrative for Stride. The reality is, we're a startup, right? We reserve the right to make changes, and the goal here is not to make Stride successful, right? That was never the purpose, or to make the ecosystem all the tokens go up. The purpose here was to build an incredible business around Atom, to add value accrual, and to further the vision of Cosmos, which was to create an internet of blockchains. That's the goal, right? That's what we're focused on. And we lost confidence that the EVM was going to help us achieve that goal. The EVM is an undifferentiated product. There's many EVMs, right? They're mostly come down to performance, right? Monad versus Stay versus Ethereum L1, etc. And what we realize is that our strength is not in building an EVM and having on-chain applications on a smart contract layer. Our strength is building out chains, right? Our strength is expanding this internet of blockchains. And we need to find a way to monetize that before we start experimenting with on-chain, decentralized applications on smart contract layers, because that's a playbook that is being won outside of Cosmos. That's a playbook that is being competed on with Solana, with Base, with Hyperliquid. That hasn't been our playbook, right? And we're behind there, and it's very expensive to catch up in terms of dollars. Very expensive. The partnerships that you need to sign, the infrastructure providers you need to get are all extremely expensive. And it may shock people that we're not doing that strategy, what everyone else is doing, right? Everyone in crypto is trying to build an EVM or some kind of VM, and then attract a bunch of builders and then incentivize them, and then they all leave, right? And they go to the next one where they're dumping incentives, and then the next one. And we don't want to be just another temporary stop for all of those people on the way to eventually leading to some other ecosystem. What we want to do is build something lasting, and we want to take a bet in the opposite direction, right? We want to be betting against the grain. And maybe that's wrong, right? It's possible that it's totally wrong, and that actually the only thing that works in crypto is an EVM smart contract layer. But generally, we've survived and we've bet, and we're still a major ecosystem by betting against the consensus, right? We bet against Ethereum when it was the only thing around, and we started building app chains. And I'm willing to bet against the consensus again, because that's what it's going to take to have massive upside potential.
Okay. I also would like to ask that with the new focus, with the new vision, the only competitor now on the market for me is XRP. Is it correct? And is that the plan to compete with XRP, or the plan is to make something different to XRP, but also on the financial field?
XRP is a customer of ours. They're building their sidechain on top of Cosmos. I think the important thing to understand here is, we want to work with businesses, right? And we want to work with major crypto protocols like XRP, because we build the infrastructure that powers their business, right? In the case of the XRP sidechain, that's a massively successful Cosmos chain, right? It's already attracted over $150 million, only 2 or 3 weeks old. We feel very strongly that there's no reason of calling anyone a competitor or a collaborator at this point. I would say if we had to classify, what we're really competing against are servers, right? We're competing against AWS. We're competing against websites, right? We're competing against older models of how you build businesses online. And we're trying to offer an alternative that is much more decentralized, much more open, much more interconnected, right? But we have to convince those developers that we can offer the same performance, the same scalability as a traditional web server, right? AWS or Amazon Cloud or Google Cloud or Microsoft Azure, those kinds of things. That's really the competition here.
How to attract new users and new developers to the Cosmos Hub? Because mainly what we are talking now is the B2B relationship, and it's not like something very familiar to usual, for example, Degen, who is looking something to buy and invest.
I think when you asked about users and developers, these are things that if you're building an on-chain EVM ecosystem, these are things that matter a lot, because as a chain like Ethereum is monetizing the activity on its L1. So having more users and developers is going to increase that activity and therefore lead to more value accrual for ETH. That is not actually how tell me how many users and builders there are for XRP. Like basically zero, right? Because the way that XRP is structured is they're actually a real company, right? They're going out and they're selling solutions to big businesses to replace cross-border payments with XRP, right? With the XRP ledger. And they accrue, or you know, the way that retail and the rest of the world sort of gets upside in that is by going to XRP, right? So I don't think getting users and developers is actually as important if we're not going down this EVM strategy, because really what we should be prioritizing is how can we attract more businesses to build on Cosmos, and how can we sell our products and services to their customers and to their applications, right? And so really the focus is how can we make the stack so good that we can attract the entire economy on chain, right? And build something so incredible and so much better than traditional web servers and traditional financial rails, that they can come on chain and begin using our services, using the Cosmos Hub services, using Atom, using the different products that we offer out of that, right? And then that can solve the story of Atom Value Pool. So I think it's a real mindset shift, right? We're not hyperliquid. We don't care about the same things. What we care about is adoption of the stack, right? And so I think that's really the shift that needs to happen. And you know, it's Cosmos starts to look very good when you have that lens versus the lens of why are we not competing with Hyperliquid or Solana? It's because they're running a different business model. They're totally different businesses, right? From our business. You wouldn't judge, you know, the performance of, you know, let's say Amazon by how many Twitter followers it has, right? Or how many partnership announcements it has. You judge it by its revenue, right? And I think that's really the expectation we have now.
Awesome. I really like the new vision because it's something very straight, direct, and very understandable. I also would like to ask about the tokenomics of Atom, because all these changes can somehow affect on it, and there are also Cosmos Hub narratives from other chains on the Cosmos Hub. They all make smaller staking APR, reducing validator active set, make the inflation level lower. Can we expect something like that with the Atom?
Well, it's not my decision, of course. It is the decision of governance, which I don't control. As some people think I do, but I do not, right? It's very decentralized. What I will say is we're getting a very good opportunity here to examine how reductions in inflation affect tokens, right? This is a very modern thing, which is some of these larger chains, including Celestia, is making huge changes to their tokenomics to reduce inflation on how that's going to affect the token, right? It's unclear, I think, at this time, if actually reducing the staking rate is long-term value accretive to Atom, or actually if the staking rate is something that is a feature, not a bug, right? I think that the reality is I don't know the right answer here, right? A lot of people feel very strongly on both sides. A lot of people say they bought Atom because of the staking rate. And a lot of people say they wish now that they have bought Atom that the staking rate goes away. But without the staking rate, maybe they would never have bought it in the first place. So I would say the word is, you know, we're closely monitoring the situation when it comes to Celestia and when it comes to some of these other chains that are changing their staking rate. And that is going to heavily inform my perspective on, along with some tokenomics research, on how we should proceed with the Atom staking rate so that I can, you know, give my suggestion to the community. Mm-hmm. Just to say one thing, which is, you know, right now things are in stasis, right? Everyone understands the staking rate of Atom. And if you hold Atom, the chances are you're staking. Over 60% of the entire supply is staked, right? I mean, 60% is locked up. Only 40% is liquid. And if you stake it, the inflation shouldn't really bother you because you're getting more tokens at the same rate at which it's inflating, right? That's it. From my perspective, we should only act decisively on the staking rate until we're sure about the outcome. And reducing the supply of the token, meaning reducing the inflation rate, needs to be coupled at the same time with an increase in demand, right? And that is what we are trying to create with this new and for Atom, right? The businesses that we are selling, the revenue that we're generating, all of this can go to demand, structural demand for Atom. At that point, I think it might be really impactful to reduce the staking rate because we'll have other forms of structural demand than just people staking.
All these big businesses start working with the Cosmos Hub. Will it make the Cosmos more centralized because of it, or the Cosmos will stay always decentralized?
I mean, in my opinion, the decentralization of the Cosmos Hub and the decentralization of the Atom token is an incredible feat, an incredible accomplishment that's been created over the past 5 years, right? I mean, when you look at most tokens today, the foundation owns over 40 or 50% of the supply, right? That's scary to me. The ICF owns, I think it's 3% of the supply. It's one of the foundations that has the least amount of its own token. The rest of that belongs to retail, right? And belongs to the believers in the ecosystem. And to me, that's very special. That's one of the reasons why we wanted to do the acquisition, is because we said, this is a very fairly distributed token. And this is one that is, worth believing in, right? It had a very fair launch. It was a visionary project back in 2019. I would argue it's still a visionary project, and many of the ideas in crypto have come from Cosmos, right? And it's been, I think, in some ways suffering from its own decentralization. But I think that was resolved in a big way when we were able to start to direct a lot of the efforts in one direction. That's not to say we're putting it in the right direction, right? I mean, I think as we've learned recently, we can make mistakes, and we expected that coming in, right? It's a big thing to turn around, right? Cosmos is a huge old project that has many people in it, and billions of dollars of volume and hundreds of chains. It's very difficult to move this around into the right direction. And I think we're learning really quickly about that, right? We're learning really quickly about what works, what our audience wants. We're talking to holders, we're talking to customers, we're talking to institutions, we're talking to liquid funds about what they're excited about when it comes to Atom. And we're constantly reevaluating our strategy against that. So in my opinion, if anything, the decentralization of Atom makes it much more attractive to invest in, because you know that there isn't some huge group of insiders that is holding it, right? And at any moment could meaningfully affect it. And that at a minimum has a relatively large degree of decentralization and security, which can't be said of most tokens today.
So after all the changes, what are your predictions for the future of Cosmos and Atom now? Because last time we met, it was absolutely different story, and it's really interesting to see how things changed.
So for the next 6 months, I can tell you what we're going to be doing, and the response to that, I think we're going to find out, but we're extremely excited about it. We are going to be running, genuine pilot programs with a large number of institutions across different sectors of industry. So with banks, with fintech companies, major Web2 institutions, with NGOs and nonprofits, which can generally serve places that are underserved by traditional technology. We're going to be working likely with governments. And we're also going to be working with new builders, right? And crypto native teams. And we're going to be exploring one question, which is, how can we make this better, right? How can we build this into a product that these people can build their businesses on and then build a real successful company out of, right? To take it back to Amazon, AWS is a $30 billion a year revenue company, right? It accounts for the majority of the profit of the entire Amazon company, which is itself one of the top 5 companies in the world. And we're looking to do a similar thing, right, when it comes to blockchain. And I think we're really set up to do that. And I think it's going to be, we've already seen the signs that it's going to be a very successful endeavor to start to really work with these teams, modify things, and build the stack into something that can 10x their own businesses, right, in Cosmos. I think what you'll expect to see from us is transparency when it comes to the kind of partners we're working with and the scale at which we're working with them. I think it's going to be some time before you see that translate into meaningful revenue. It's just how it works. It takes time to build out the solution. It takes time to progress these pilot programs. But during that time, I think we're going to be learning a lot on setting ourselves up for massive success over the next 5 years, versus rushing at something that looks like an easy win.
So thanks a lot, Mark, for joining us today. It was very interesting. I hope people will understand better what is going on in the Cosmos Hub now. And I hope everything will work, because that sounds absolutely huge. And I really would like to see how Cosmos Hub will become a financial router for the crypto businesses, companies, and even governors.
Appreciate that. Yeah, thanks for having me on.